computer.
Hi guys, this is Ellie with Journeys with Ellie, and I am here today with the beautiful Suzanne. Is it Suzanne or Susan?
Yeah, it's Suzanne Wagner.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I thought. I am so sorry. I should have cleared that before. Um, I, as I was preparing for this conversation, I was setting space and clearing energy, and I had a message come through that I think is a really good way to start this conversation. So, my intention for this conversation is to open the doors to different types of medicine and gifts, even if they don't fall under the current labels, to give permission for you to explore your unique gifts, your power, your alchemy, your medicine. You are powerful. Your gift is probably something you don't see as a gift because it does come so naturally. It's the way you perceive reality and your ability to decipher the information. What are the things that you love? What are the things that come easy to you? It can look like art, music, writing. It can also look like dancing and movement of the body. It can also look like setting space for ceremony, bringing people together, making spaces and people beautiful. And it can look like nutrition. It can also look like channeling, energy, work, cards, and readings. Own your medicine and craft your magic.
Perfect. Absolutely. And you and I talked before, before this time today, and we both are in that same mindset that there are so many people out there right now that are searching for tools. And there's a lot of different types of tools, and they have different values, and they all have value to some extent. So all of them are important one way or the other. And I operate from this place that, we are, especially all women, are flowers in a garden, and every flower is beautiful, and the garden needs every flower, and not one flower is more beautiful than another flower. And so in this world where we are dealing with so much competition, and so much animosity and anger and what's better and I'm right and you're wrong, I love the fact that you and I both want to have this conversation about how can we bring women together, how can we bring healers together, how can we honor and respect the tools and the techniques that each one is offering. And this conversation is a doorway to have those people that are listening out there to start to kind of contemplate, like, one, what are the tools that you're seeking, and also what kind of tools are out there, and for us to really go into that more.
Yes. One of the things that I want to make sure is I feel like some of this conversation may be a little bit triggering or controversial. Um, and that is not the intention. I don't want to deny anybody their gift. But I also want to give permission to removing the labels and removing the names that we are so used to hearing, you
Mm,
know, certain things like Reiki as the only form of energy work.
right.
And things like that. So those are the labels that I want to remove and open the door to energy work without it having to sound like one specific word, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, because, what I find is that each tool operates and vibrates at a certain frequency. And, I say that people are like a telescope, that we have lenses. We have a physical lens, we have an emotional lens, we have a mental lens, we have an astral lens, we have an etheric lens, and a spiritual lens. And life throws those lenses out of balance. And when those lenses are out of balance, you don't feel that connection to the divine, that connection to oneness. And what happens is that we go and have an experience of a tool, and let's use Reiki as an example. And it operates on the etheric lens beautifully, amazingly. And if you have the etheric lens out and you have a Reiki session, it'll blow your socks right off the door. I mean, it's like,
Absolutely.
oh my word, like this is the best thing since sliced bread. And that's wonderful. And we want to honor that experience, but then we will have other people that their issues are on a very dense physical lens. And so the etheric energy of Reiki, while it might be able to kind of start to pull some of those into balance, it may not be able to maintain them completely. So we want to have this open conversation so that the people out there start to look and evaluate themselves, like, am I dealing with really physical, dense issues? And what are the tools that might help that? But I guarantee you, if you get one lens in, you're going to suddenly notice that another lens is out or needs a little bit of fine tuning. And so you and I are both on the same mindset that, we'll try every tool. We'll try every tool, like, and keep an open mind on absolutely every tool. And
Yes.
had things experienced like 20 years ago that I was like, okay, why am I doing this? Like, what did I get out of this? And then 20 years later, I'm like, oh, that's what that was about, because I couldn't assimilate that level of information at that moment because of other patterns of complication that I was dealing with in my life, in my body, in my psyche. And then once they align, then all of a sudden these esoteric pieces of information suddenly make a lot more sense, and they help to align things a little bit better. So I think that right now, because there are so many amazingly gifted teachers, healers, facilitators, body workers, healers, massage therapists, acupuncturists. I mean, you name it, meditation instructors that have so many gifts to offer. But I think it is confusing for people to try and figure out, where am I supposed to go next? And my first thing is to follow your nose. Like, what are you intuitively being drawn to? Like, listen to that first and foremost, even when it's not rational or logical. It's like, for some reason, I feel like I need to do this. I have people that say to me, they'll say, oh my gosh, I heard your name 6 times in one day, and I don't even know who you are. I don't even know what you do. So I'm calling because what do you do? Right. Like, and so
Yeah.
you have to kind of listen to your own inner guidance. And I remember a facilitator said to me many years ago, when I was 26 and I'm 63 now, they said, you have to trust your inner knowing that it has put you in this place with this person as a facilitator, as a coach, as a teacher, as a doorway for you to be able to get through something that you can't see, but that is their gift to be able to see where you're stuck. And
Yes.
you have to trust that they have that tool, and you have to stay open to it, because you can resist a facilitator and not get the gift that they're trying to offer, which is unfortunate. And because people can use their one of my gurus used to say, he said, the most powerful person in the room can use all their power to stay stuck.
Mm,
Right. And
yeah.
so that's really important to understand, that if you're a powerhouse person, you can latch on to a particular identity or a particular perceptual bubble and position, and you can hold on to that, and everybody else is wrong and you're right. And I'm like, well, what if everybody is right? Like, what if everybody is actually giving certain insights? Like, you see a bubble from one angle, and this tool, you see the bubble from one angle, but there's another angle to see it. And the game is to use all the healers and go all the way around the bubble every way you possibly can, and
Yeah.
slowly unravel the dysfunctional kinks that we all carry. I mean, we're all carrying them. And it doesn't make you a bad person that you're stuck, or you're afraid, or you're angry, or you are resisting. Part of me just goes, if I'm resisting, it means I'm right up against something, and that's a good news to me. I'm like, wow, I'm right there. So now I just
Yeah.
need somebody that gives me that little extra push to kind of push me off of my stuck position, and then all of a sudden another reality opens.
So as you're saying that, the question, what do you think, why do you think it's easier for some people to move through their stuff than it is for others? And why do some stay stuck in these stories and these identities and the things that maybe one thing hurt them, you know,
Yeah.
and they just kind of stay there for maybe the rest of their life even.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the answer is fear. I mean, fear is this incredibly constrictive thing. And especially if you've had damage from your childhood or something, that some part of you goes, don't ever go that direction again. It's bad, right? And yet the answer is always by confronting the things that we fear the most. So when I was younger, I recognized that fear was my nemesis, and I'm a retired principal ballet dancer. And so you can imagine, like, everything is about confronting fear. I went to New York when I was 15 by myself, during the Son of Sam years, that it was very dangerous to live in New York City. And you go outside and you're like, oh, like this. And so you have to learn to confront fear, and, trying a new ballet or a new step, it's very terrifying, and yet you have to keep confronting fear. And what you find is, as you confront fear, everything that your ego has told you about that is probably not true. It's probably a lie, but that your ego will use that to stop you from trying because it's afraid to lose control. But the answer is always on the other side of fear. The answer is always beyond what the ego mind has been telling us. So whenever I find myself locked down and saying, I need to be right, like my position is right, that's bad, I actually try and move directly in that way. I mean, so for me, you'll laugh, but I took a whole bunch of my friends and we went bungee jumping. And I enrolled everybody because I said, I want to commit suicide to my fear. And I want to directly confront it. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of the noise in my head. I just want to stop being afraid. And so it was in Park City, and I was in a balloon, and I was going up, and you go out onto this platform and you jump. And as I go up, I'm hyperventilating. And the facilitator says, we've got a screamer. So sure enough, as I fell, I screamed all the way down. But the metaphor I was using was that my fearful self would crash and die, and my true self would be on the bungee cord and bounce and go higher, right?
Oh,
And
beautiful.
I like to use that metaphor for all healing modalities. Like, you go in, and when I work with people, I've had people come in and they're shaking, and I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, I think I'm scared. I'm like, what are you scared about? And they're like, you. And I'm like, I mean, I don't kill flies. I don't kill bees. I mean, like, I would never hurt anybody, right? But that confronting what you don't know is terrifying. And yet that is the direction to go when you want to discover who you are. And what I love about all healing modalities, and I don't care which one it is, you never find out you're a piece of you always find out that you're this beautiful, amazing person on the inside that's
Yes.
just gotten covered over by layers and layers of fear and anger and hurt and resentment. And so the whole idea is, how do we uncover those blankets? How do we get those blankets off? And for myself, I mean, I've had lots of blankets that had to be taken off by lots of healers and lots of massage therapists. Thank God for them, because they had a tool that could take this layer off, and then this one was this layer off. And so my suggestion to people is to be fearless, to be absolutely fearless and to go for it in as big of a way as you possibly could, because there's nothing but good stuff on the other side. Like, the fear is the lie. The part that says you can't do it is a lie. All of that is a lie. You are a vastly massive being of light that just happens to be in a physical body having a limited expression. But it doesn't have to be limited if you let go of the feelings and the sensation of limitation.
Absolutely. That's very well put,
Yeah,
because it is all conditioning. And at some point, if you're really willing to do the work, you have to decide, well, why do I believe what I believe? Is it because I believe that is my original belief, or is it because my mom told me, or
mhm.
my dad told me, or my school told me, or
Yeah,
all of the things that we have around us as we grow up and as we create our identities? Why do we believe what we believe?
right. My favorite phrase is, this is what's true for me now.
Yes.
Right? It's just now, because a year from now, this may look totally different. But in this moment, this is what's true for me now. And
Yeah,
keep that
absolutely.
flexible. Yeah. Inside of yourself, because we live in a society that wants to put everything in a box. They do. It wants to put everything in a box, and everything has a definition. And I remember when I was working in LA, and they were saying, well, Suzanne, what are you? Are you a psychic? Are you this? And I was just like you. I'm like, oh, I hate labels, like labels. People trigger on labels like, ooh, psychic, they have a bad word, or, oh, massage
Yes.
therapist, oh, you're a prostitute, or something like that. Like they have all these positions and judgments. And, and they would be like, well, everybody needs a label. And I was just like, I don't want a label. I want to kind of say I'm a spiritual healer of some sort, or a
Mhm.
metaphorical counselor. And because I want to include the body, the mind, the spirit, the soul, the karma, the essence, the creative, and pull everything together. And let's use every tool we possibly can to uncover this light that's inside of you, right? And
Absolutely.
some tools work better than others in moments, and then some tools work only with certain people. Like I have people that go, oh, don't touch tarot cards, they're evil. I'm like, okay, I don't need to touch a tarot card. I mean, it's like, that's not a necessary thing. And then other people go, oh, well, body work is the root of all evil. I'm like, wow, really? Okay. Like, okay, I won't touch you, I mean, and so but people have all these layers of judgment, but the people that need to be touched the most fear to be touched,
Mhm.
because you touch them and they're going to cry and all this feeling is going to come out of them, right? And then people that are afraid of spiritual tools, we're told usually by somebody that something's evil. And
Mhm.
what I find is that it's the intent with which something is used,
Absolutely.
right?
And that's also one of the things that I want to touch base on, because I don't know if using the phrase like there's danger in energy work, but it really is the intention of the facilitator, the intention of the worker. And I do believe, which I've experienced myself, that there are healers whose intention isn't always the highest white light intention.
Sure, sure.
Um, how what is a good way to move through that? I mean, how
So
the
what
there that is out there.
it is out there. And I remind everybody, everybody's human. Everybody is down here working on karma, right?
Yes.
So none of us, are perfect, right? So every healer will have their thing. But what I learned in working with the gurus is that the gurus and the teachers and the facilitators and the healers fail on the three lower chakras. And so they fail on the third chakra, which is power, which means that they want your energy. They want you to adore them. They want you to need them. They want your power. They want to take your power. Okay. Well, if you have to do it my way, you have to do what I say, or terrible things are going to happen to you. If you ever hear a facilitator or a healer say that to you, run away. Run. Okay. Because they're trying to hook you on a third chakra level. Then it's the second chakra, and the second chakra is sex. And so an easy example is Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. So, he was known for wild sex ashrans, and all craziness was happening, and he was having sex with 20 or 30 different women and married to an Indian woman. And so again, any teacher who is manipulating around sexuality and says, well, I know who you should be in relationship with, you should have sex with that person, again, run the other way. I had, when I was working with Yogi Bhajan, he basically said to me, oh, well, I don't tell the American women because they don't understand, but I'm having sex with all these women because I'm a sexual healer. But we don't tell the American women because, they don't understand. And I want to say, no, you're off, like you're off. You are using women, and you're using your position of power to get what you want, which is sex. So if you see a teacher doing that, run. Okay. So don't let that happen either. And then the last one is the first chakra. And the first chakra is all about money. And so again, I have three clients that worked with Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and he said to them, they all were trust fund babies. And he said, if you give me your trust fund, you can stay and live in the ashram forever. So they did. And he taught some things until he got pissed at them, and then he threw them out of the ashram, and they had nothing. They
Oh
were
wow.
broke. And he bought 17 Rolls Royces. Okay. So anytime a teacher does an exorbitant amount of money, so like when I was working with Shaman and Prue, because they think Americans have all this money, they were like, oh, for $20,000, I will clear all your family karma. Well, number one, no one can do that. Okay. Like, no, Jesus Christ himself could not do that. Okay. Because it's your obligation to clear your own karma. So, you can't pay somebody to do your karma. That's ridiculous. Okay. But that's what a lot of people think, is that if I just throw money at it, then I don't have to do any of this work. And see, I feel better. And I'm like, maybe for a little bit. But the bottom line is, if you haven't shifted the vibration, then that vibration you're holding will attract back in that level, right? Because you have to
Absolutely.
vibrationally shift. So again, a teacher that says, give me $20,000 and I'll clear your karma, run. Okay. Any facilitator or teacher that charges ridiculous amounts of money for very little, run. Okay. Because that means they're not clear on those chakras. So I did a workshop series called Healing the Healers. We're talking in the 1980s. And we did all these amazing things for a year and a half. And I taught them that one thing that I just said in this video. And people came back 12 years later and they said, that one thing you told me saved me over and over and over again, because they fail on these areas. They want the money, they want the power, or they want sex, and they get twisted in these darker chakras, because it's easy to kind of move from the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye, the crown chakra, and have that spiritual energy. But take a look at every facilitator, or, how are they on the lower chakras? Are they manipulating around money? Are they after sex? Are they trying to get you to make them into some sort of guru, and just kind of recognize where someone is still working on their issues, because that doesn't mean they don't have tools in these upper chakras, but don't let them manipulate you from their darker, unhealed parts.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, with Yogi Bhajan, I mean, it was one point, it's like, he owed a friend of mine money for something that she was doing, a fashion show for yoga clothes and everything, and he hadn't paid her, and she couldn't get him to pay her the money. And I went in and I said, she is not your devotee. You are in Beverly Hills. You pay
Yes.
them. You pay them right now. She doesn't care about this other stuff. And it took me like an hour of conversing with him to get him to just write a check to her, because he wanted the money. He wanted that, I mean, they want all of those and they get really attached. And when they're attached to all three, they're kind of dangerous, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I want to talk about you've had all these experiences. Let's talk a little bit about what you do and what you bring to the world.
right. So my name is Suzanne Wagner, and I have been a psychic, intuitive healer, body worker, craniosacral therapy person for my whole life, practically. Like I said, I'm a retired principal ballet dancer. And so I've learned a lot about the body, mind, spirit connection through my art and through dance, and learning how to connect all of those, because you're kind of required to when you're at an advanced level of being a ballet dancer. But I found that the intuitive arts and the therapeutic arts, like massage therapy, saved my life over and over again. I mean, I would not have been where I was as a dancer without incredible body workers and acupuncturists and healers and energy workers. And oh my gosh, it goes on and on. And I was very blessed that when I lived in Germany and I worked in Germany, that in Germany, if I had back pain, I went to the doctor and they'd give me a prescription for 10 massages before they would even see me again. And I was like, this is great. Like, I
Yeah.
totally use this system, right? And so I got tons of body work and found incredible value in all of that. But when I went to go to retire, I got a license for massage therapy, worked in massage for 30 years. and did craniosacral therapy and did all the John Upledger, Pulse St. John neuromuscular therapy stuff. And so that whole connection to energy in the body and how things are moving through the body, but was always of great fascination to me. But ever since I was a kid, I could talk to dead people. I could, see angels and guides in the room. I would get intuitive hits. I was reading tarot cards when I was 7 years old. I was reading numbers when I was 9 years old. And so I became a Kundalini yoga teacher, and then I learned all about the numerology system. And so again, in my household, we were a house of numbers, and my father was a mathematician. So numbers made a lot of sense to me. So the dance between the numbers on a tarot card, numbers in astrology, and numbers in numerology all interconnected in my brain in one moment, and everything made sense. It was like this three-dimensional picture. It was like, whoa, how these are all interconnected. And so I wrote a book on numerology that is on Amazon. It's also on the Kindle. I wrote a book on tarot. So they're called Integral Tarot and Integral Numerology. If you have a session with me, you'll get a copy of the the numerology book and the numerology workbook for free as part of a session with me. And I do astrology, and I do channeling, and I do cards, and I do numerology. And I'm kind of like, I'll say to people, what do you feel like doing today? Which way do you want to go? And I let people kind of define the direction, because each of those tools focuses slightly differently than the others. And so what I find is, if the numerology is saying one thing, the astrology is saying a similar thing, and then the cards are saying a third thing, that makes my accuracy level very, very high, which is why people are drawn to me, because they're like, oh my God, you are so accurate, like to the day almost, or to the month. And it is because I'm doing this, triangulation, because I don't think one tool has all the answers. I think that the more tools you can play with, the more you can work with. So, but I've taken groups to Peru. I have taken people down to have ceremonies in the ruins in Machu Picchu. I have done workshops called the Wild Women Symposium, where I brought in 20 facilitators that had all different modalities, and women got to pick and choose which workshops they wanted to take at any particular time. And so I've taught tarot, I've taught numerology. My numerology is free on my YouTube channel. So you just do Suzanne Wagner numerology class, it's right there. Same thing, Suzanne tarot class, it's all right there. So there's all this free stuff that I put out there, because I think that people want to have access to information. And,
Yeah.
and I've just got information coming out all over the place. And I put also out a daily numerology and astrology blog. It's on my Facebook channel, and it's on my blog, and it's on my YouTube channel, and it's all free again, because I think the game is, we have to share, we have to share what we learn. And hopefully this will ignite people to find their own tools that they can work with.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the favorite things that you do is every year on my birthday, you'll send the numerology for that
Mm-hmm.
year.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. And then also the Wild Woman Symposium is how we met. So you put together some really, really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
spaces for us. So
I
thank you.
want to create that environment that allows the facilitators to give their gifts, because I think sometimes that's the hardest thing, is like to get the audience, how to get
Yes.
the audience, how to get your name out there, but Salt Lake City and the Valley of Salt Lake has really amazingly become a hub. When I did the Wild Women Symposium the first time, it was really interesting. A videographer came up and he said, do you know Salt Lake City is the new Omega? And I'm like, now Omega is the healing center in New York State in the Hudson River Valley. And so there's another one that's on the East Coast that's called Esalen. And so there's these two coastal things, but they said, you guys, Salt Lake City and this this area right here is the new Mecca. And I believe that, because when I very first got to Salt Lake, I felt like Brigham Young. I felt like I was like, this is the place. I'm like, what? The assignment in Maui. I mean, can I get the assignment in Maui? Maybe not Maui at the moment, but I mean, it was really weird, but it was like, no, you're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be here. And part of it is that the salt flat is very grounding.
Oh, yeah.
And the mountains are a basin, which means it contains the energy. So it creates kind of a magical, very grounded space. And I think that's helpful on a healing level because, whereas Santa Fe can be very, very esoteric, Salt Lake, you can't get too esoteric because you have to have that grounded element when you're here because of the salt flat. So if you are too esoteric, you just look woo woo. And I remember that when I was in Hawaii and I was doing some sessions, people are like, God, you're like the most grounded psychic ever. I'm like, I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, right?
Mhm.
And so while I live now in Northern California and I live with my husband on 32 acres in the Redwood Forest, I do phone sessions and I do Zoom sessions and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's kind of me and what I do.
Beautiful. I will provide contact information for the viewers and the audience so that they can um, look into your everything that you provide, and then maybe receive sessions or whatever it is that you
Well, and
are
just to
open
go
to offer.
explore all the free stuff, there's just tons.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't tell you how many people are like, "Oh my God, I have watched your videos every single day for 10 years and I've wanted a reading with you for 10 years and now I'm finally doing it." And I go, "Sometimes that's what it takes that this is why we're doing these videos because people need to see other people like, oh, I like her. I like how she feels. I like how she looks. I like who she is, right? And that's why doing these things are so important, especially these days, because the populace is very focused on video.
Yes, which is part of the reason I think why I want to provide my platform the way that I do is because we are very visual creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that viewers, I don't always watch a video when I'm listening to information,
Mm-hmm.
but when I do, I I enjoy it a lot. Sometimes I'm there for the whole thing, and sometimes I am driving and listening to the information, but no matter what way I'm receiving the information, this way provides both.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there ever a time that you turned your gifts off for society, or a time in your life where you shut it down?
Well, I will say that I was in parochial school. And so I was raised Catholic and Irish Catholics on both sides. And I was in parochial school and I was on the playground and I saw Jesus and I saw an angel and they said, go into the church and we want to show you something. So I went into the church and it was Easter time. So they had the big Easter candle. And if anybody doesn't know the protocols for Catholic churches, you don't go on the altar like a normal person, only the priest gets to be on the altar. Right. So they wanted me on the altar and I don't know how it happened, but we got all the candles in the church, which there's a lot of candles in a Catholic church. And I got all the candles on the altar and I got them all lit. I don't know, remember how I did that, but that's what happened. And Jesus was giving me this beautiful lesson about how the wax is like the body of man. And that when you have to remember, I'm 6 years old. So this is a 6-year-old lesson, right? So that when it's lit by spirit, it burns through the wax, which is why you die. But that wax, where does that go? It goes up into the divine, and yet you still retain your unique individuality of that wax, even though you're now in the air and part of the divine. And so it's this beautiful little teaching that I was getting when the nuns caught me and come in super mad, drag me off the altar, drag me to the Mother Superior's office. And back then we had paddles on the walls that were the size of the bottoms of the
Oh,
different children. And I'm looking at them going, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble. So I go into the Mother Superior. I'm in this big wingback chair. And she says to me, what happened? And I told her the truth. And she said, you are a lying, blasphemous child. And no one sees Jesus until the second coming. And in that moment, I realized these people were supposed to be the most powerful direction and connection to God. And they couldn't see Jesus in the room, nor could they see an angel in the room. And so they had totally lost their connection. And in that moment, I realized that I could believe their words or I could believe my own experience. And shockingly, I decided to believe my own experience, which was that they were disconnected and I wasn't. And that in that moment, I decided to never tell an adult anything I saw ever.
Yeah.
Now, I still stayed open, but I refused to talk. Now, I was like the best babysitter ever because if a kid said there's a monster in the closet, I went and checked, right? Because there might be a monster in the closet, right? So, I mean, because I can see dead people, and sure enough, occasionally there was a monster in the closet or a dead person in the closet, right? And we'd have to have a little discussion and get them out of the closet, right? But, I would tell kids because kids were open, but adults were very closed.
Mhm.
And so that was that place that as I moved through and I was a dancer, I still learned to keep my mouth very shut, because theaters are haunted. They're full of all sorts of interesting ghosts. And there's a lot of things that are going on in a theater that you don't know about. And, but I just learned to keep my mouth shut. It's like best not to say to adults. And so I had to unwind that entire pattern at a certain point and start taking the risk to share what I was noticing with others. And it was very scary because it was like, oh, what if another mother superior comes down on me in some way? But I'm grateful to my inner child self that she chose to believe herself and her own experience and make that the priority over the authority, right? And because of that, I never lost that innocent connection that I feel like I still have today.
Yeah. What a powerful experience.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
amazing and it changed me and it did a good thing. I can't tell you how many therapists I talked to said, "Oh my God, the fact that you made that decision when you were 6 years old is remarkable.
Yeah.
It's not what a 6 year old would normally do, right?"
Yeah.
And so, I kind of know how we open and then we shut down because society and rules and people judge us. And, there's all this fear. But I'm grateful right now that we're in a place where there are TV shows with mediums and psychics and all this stuff. And there's more and more of this stuff on, Oprah Winfrey's channel and, Gaia and all these cool shows that are out there right now that are kind of starting to make people see that maybe it's not so weird.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's another thing I want to touch base on that I hadn't really thought about is allowing our littles to stay open to their gifts. I know I'm guilty myself of I remember my son would tell me like, "Oh, Sarah's cat is sitting in the window right now." And we would be driving, or even like yesterday, my granddaughter was over and we were talking about my nieces and she's like, "Oh no, they're very sick. It's a virus." And their grandma is very sick right now. And I think that so many times we think it's like silly and I would laugh. I would be like, "Oh my gosh, Sarah's cat is in the window. Ha ha ha." But now looking back, I'm like, "Oh, I wish I would have known better so that I could open that gift in him and keep it open and keep the gifts open in myself and keep those open." And now I want so badly to keep the gifts open in my grandchildren. And it's funny to see it now from another perspective where it can be a little bit scary, like, to other adults. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's scary to me. You don't tell me you're seeing a ghost, or don't tell me this because that is scary." And I'm over here like, "Tell me about the ghosts." And she's like, "Oh, the aliens talk to me." And she had told her mom a conversation that she had, like, I don't remember what the message was. It was like, "Be careful," something like that. But then when I asked her, I said, "Baby, the aliens are talking to you. What are they saying?" And she goes, "Beep boop, beep boop."
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, and it's really good to kind of validate. Like I had one woman that she called and she said, "My daughter has kind of gone into like this dark goth witchy kind of place." And she said, "Would you talk to her?" And I said, "Sure." So it wasn't a real session. It was just I was doing it for free. I'm helping a mother, and this 15-year-old comes in my office. We're sitting on the sofa and I have windows on this side. And I noticed that she's going like this. And so finally I said to her, "He's not allowed in my house." And she goes, You can see him? I said, yeah, I can see a demon. Yeah. And she's like, well, how do you know it's a demon? I said, that's a demon. I said, I have my house sealed. No demons are allowed. And notice it wasn't able to walk in with you. That's a demon. That defines it right there. I'm more than happy to have guides and ghosts. I am not okay with demons. Demons are a no-no. And
Yeah.
she was just stunned, and I said, look, I said, this thing is feeding off of your fear and your insecurity and your need to feel like you have power. And it's going to offer you things so that you have power, but it's going to take more from you than it's going to give. And she was just stunned. Well, it already did that. And I said, I said, you have the power. If you have the power to see it, you have the power to banish it. I said,
Mm.
but you have to make that decision. You have to make that call, and you have to choose to believe in you and not believe in that power of that thing over there. That thing has power, but when you're in a physical body, you have more power being in a physical body because your whole soul is embodied in this. You have more power here than when you're in a diffused state in the ethers, and she was just like, okay, how do I do that? And so I took her through the steps in order to do that. And sure enough, it was gone. Right. So, it is the place where it is important for us to stay open, so that we aren't scared. I'm not scared of the demon. I mean, it's like, demons can't hang out around me. My
Mm.
favorite joke from the Peruvian shaman was they said, we have a phrase in Peru and it goes like this: demons can't hang out around laughter. And we've decided that there isn't a demon within 50 miles of you because I have a lighthearted spirit, and just a lighthearted spirit, that positive energy banishes darkness because it needs to feed on fear and anger and resentment and wounding.
Yes. So on that note, I'm sure that there are people out there dealing with demons, whether they're their own or on the outside. Can you go over some of those steps?
Sure, sure. So, recently, I'll just share a recent experience. So, recently, I was helping a friend, and this friend clearly had dementia and was losing the threads, right? And I fell asleep on their sofa, and I had a dream that there was a demon trying to attack me. And that's really rare for me because I don't usually have that, right? So I was like, whoa, like, And so then I went to sleep that night and I had another dream, but this time Michael the archangel was standing between me and the demon. And he said, this thing is attached to this old stuff from her mother and all of the dark energy from her mother. And you've got to get rid of it because she doesn't have the life force energy to fight the demon anymore.
Mm.
And so I woke up and I turned and I saw the demon. And I was like, oh, now you're done. Now you're done. And so I went and I bought copal, which is a resin and a charcoal burner. I bought a sage stick. I bought Palo Santo spray and Palo Santo wood. And I got a large candle, like a week-long candle. And I lit the candle and I said, as this candle burns, no dark energy is allowed in this house at all. I call on Michael the Archangel, all the ascended masters to protect this woman and this space from this dark energy that is trying to feed off of her. And while this candle burns, do not allow anything in the space. I got a blue topaz and I put it around her neck because blue topaz deflects negative energy. And so then I sprayed the house with the Palo Santo spray. I smudged the whole house with the Palo Santo and the sage and the copal. And I could feel this thing kind of going to the fringes, right? It was trying to go to the fringes. And so every night that I was there, I sprayed her pillow with Palo Santo and her bed so that it couldn't come in to her. It was like I put a protective shield around her. And she is in memory care now, and she basically said, I still have the necklace on, and she says, I have never been this peaceful in my life.
Wow.
Right. And she's never taken off the necklace, right? So it's like that's, I mean, I hit that with everything I had, so I used every tool I had in that book in that moment. Sometimes you don't have to use all of them, but in that case, that was clearly a demon. So I was like, okay, and it was attacking me. I'm like, yeah, no, it's like we're not going to play this game anymore. And I got rid of all that stuff. I pulled all this stuff out of her house. I got rid of all that stuff, and the more of this old stuff and the old furniture got out of the house, the better she felt. And just because I'm a conscientious person, is selling it to the consignment shop, I smudged it all. Okay, so I smudged it all, I cleared it all before it went out the door because I didn't want anybody else getting the demon either, right? So it was like, let's be a responsible, mystical person and just clear all of this to the best of our ability. So that to me is the easiest way to do it, for me. And it's just like I just hit it with everything I've got. And usually one of those is going to be stronger than another for that particular frequency, because I've cleared houses before and the sage didn't work and the copal didn't work, but the Palo Santo worked. And all of a sudden, when the Palo, boom, the whole energy cleared, and so I just think, why not use all three?
Yeah. And Archangel Michael is such a powerful for those instances. Like I have called on him in nightmares or waking up from nightmares or times that I feel like I've been attacked, whether sleeping or awake. And so
Mhm.
he's really powerful to call on. So that's a really great suggestion for anyone.
Well, and I love people that are feeling really scared. And, I have them go to Mancuso's in Salt Lake, which is the Catholic store. And they have like a little St. Michael statue. And they also have the St. Michael medallion, and then get holy water, because you can get holy water there. And that's also really good, so it's just like put the statue right next to your bed, wear the necklace, and then, sprinkle the, water around your bed, and just kind of create a shield or a bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because I'm sure that is going to be useful to at least one, if not many, of the viewers. All right. Well, I think that we have covered a lot of ground. I feel like I could have you on so many times, and the conversation would be different every time. And
Yeah.
I think that is one of the beautiful things about this industry and this world and this lifestyle, or whatever word you want to insert to best fit that. So
I
is
believe that,
there
the magic is real, the magic
uh,
is real and the magic is right there, but you do have to be brave enough to try.
absolutely. And I think that's a lot. What I'm seeing is this visual of so many people wanting to try it, and all of their conditioning, all of their fears. um and I'm hearing like, oh, what would happen if I did? What what if I can't come back from that? But
Yeah.
the yeah, I
Well,
mean, I
I
think
would say that it's sort of like spiritual doors are interesting because they open and you step through, and they're kind of like the doors in Star Trek, that then they close and they disappear. So it's sort of like once you're through a door, honestly, you don't want to go back, and you can't really go back once a level of awareness has opened up. So
Mhm.
one of my teachers said, he said, people are like in a room and it's a dark room. And they are afraid of this corner because they believe that there's a snake in that corner. And they live their whole life scared of that corner because they don't want to go over there. And enlightenment is the moment where, for one moment, the light turns on and you see the room and you look in the corner and you realize that what you thought was a coiled snake was actually a rope. And then the light goes out again. And from that point on, are you ever scared of the corner again?
No.
No, and it's sort of like, and yes, you might be in the dark again, but you're not scared of that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to encourage you, find your magic. Try different things. You might try something and you're like, wow, I got nothing from that. I don't think that's mine or for me. And it might not be for you right now in this moment, but that doesn't mean that it's not for you ever again.
Exactly. Exactly. And so the game is to just try it. And if it works, great, keep doing it. But to even with that, not to get overly attached to it, because what I find is that everyone has a gift, some only have one. Okay. And so, again, as long as gifts are flowing, keep moving with that. Do you know what I mean? But there, we all have a point where it's like, I don't know how to do this. It's one of the reasons that I love my referral network, because I know how to do rebirthing. I just don't do it. I'm a certified rebirther. I just don't do it. But I know rebirthers. And so I go, if I know somebody needs rebirthing, I send them over there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what this is about, is like, who are the people doing certain things? Where are they? Do I like their vibe? Do I like their energy? And do I want to move in that direction?
Yeah. Yeah. And be curious. Get curious about modalities. Get curious about what is out there. And that's part of, I think, what brings us full circle is removing the labels,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many gifts and medicine out there. And don't let yourself get stuck on that one word
Right,
or that one, or it has to look and sound like this,
right,
because there is just so much beauty out there.
right. And, why not open the doors and discover the magic that's inside you?
Absolutely. That is what I wish for everyone, because it is what keeps me alive. Like, it makes me the happiest when I'm in my element, when I'm in my magic. So yeah, it's
Good.
beautiful.
Well, so good to talk to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want the audience to know before we head out?
Well, you can always find me on my website, SuzanneWagner.com. And my phone number is 707-354-1019. But again, there's so much out there. I have a Facebook page that, is a fan page, and all the information is also there if you want to go diving into that. So, enjoy and explore. And who knows, maybe I'll see you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for today's conversation and for showing up for me and everyone else, including yourself.
Thanks. You're welcome. You have a good
Yeah.
day. Good luck.
Thank you.